Alright guys, welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to talk about our 2020 deer season, our up and downs. I had some decent bucks on camera this year for the third year of hunting a little property behind the house. I actually had one good buck, actually 20 yards in front of me, early season, early morning. It was still dark, but I didn't know it. My camera got the picture though, so that was pretty good. My wife got the first deer, doe, and that video is actually on the channel. So if you want to check it out, go ahead and look at it. And mine is not recorded. I got one during gun season with a 350 Legend. We dropped it, but once it gets pretty dark, the GoPro and the batteries aren't the greatest. They'll die within about an hour. Now I'll tell you about the story of this buck that I did shoot in first week in November. So for it being my first buck, other than this little 4-point here, it's a major upgrade. I'd say about 100 was a score, roughly. Right around there. Now, early November, I had was sitting in a stand I normally don't sit in. My calls I left in another stand that was close by, so I didn't have any calls. And I run the Conquest Sense out of the electronic unit that they have. So I had two of those going with the VS1. So I was sitting there, I hadn't seen nothing. About 4 o'clock came around, and I was starting to hear what I thought was squirrels, but it sounded not so much like squirrels. So I looked over to my left, and here this buck was making a scrape. I watched him for a little bit. I didn't have my calls or anything with him I could use to get him to come over to me, so I just had to wait. He came around behind me, and I took an angled shot. He was quartered to me just a little bit, and I was using my crossbow. I had Grim Reaper, the 2-inch cut, or somewhere around there, 2-inch cut. It was something sort of like that for the crossbow. And I shot, and it didn't sound very good at all. This is actually the arrow that I shot this deer with. As you can see, that much had broken off of it. So about 5.5 inches broke off that was left in the deer. After reviewing it and actually looking at the remains of this deer, it hit the ribs. And I'm thinking when it hit the ribs, it only opened one blade on it. So when it hit it, it only opened one blade, and it went in right above the shoulder blade, going straight down. He took off running for about 20 yards, and within the first 5 seconds, I seen him snap the bolt, and it just came up and out, and I thought, oh no. I thought the whole broadhead came out and everything, and he ran about 40 yards, stopped, and at that time I thought he was doing some like lunges forward or whatever, but once I got down and inspected it, he was actually making a scrape. I waited all night, and the next day I came out and looked. He did the scrape. I literally had no blood on it other than what's on the arrow. The blood went up to the farthest part was right there on the arrow. So I didn't find it at all. The little woods that I got, he did not die on. I actually hunt another property that's within like 800 yards of that. The landowner had sent me a picture in the first week of November, or the first week of gun season here in Ohio. And it was this buck here, dead. We heard some coyotes after I shot it, a couple weeks, so we kind of normally hear them, so I didn't think too much of it. And I asked him where he got it from, and he told me, and I went down and took a look. And this is the deer that I shot, and I know now why that is. When I shot him, only the one blade, there was only one blade that got him. And the amount that's missing off of this arrow is the amount that he had down the same side that I had shot, the shoulder. His lungs were still in there. So I gagged through that and pulled it out and looked at it because I wanted to be sure. Landowner said he was going to keep the head. That was fine with me. I just wanted to make sure to see if this is actually the buck that I had killed or not. And I pulled the guts out, or at least the organs of it. Lungs were black, and it had a gash about 5 or 6 inches down one side of the lung, and that was it. The other lung was fine. I did not find the other arrow in there. The other arrow that broke off, that shoulder that I had hit was a shoulder that the coyotes tore all up and ate them all up. The landowner said he was going to keep the head, and I said, okay, that's fine. Told him that that was the one that I shot, and I was glad to see it. Wasn't glad that I didn't get to keep any of the meat from it, that it was all gone, but just to be able to know that I did actually kill it, for the first big buck, that's pretty good. I like it. Now, the landowner that found it just had it laying around, and it was rotten, of course. Stunk really bad. And I was trying to get the head off of it, but he wasn't budging. Then he asked for some help down on his land and told me that I could keep the head if I helped him. So I went down. Okay, so that was my first real buck, other than the little tiny one. That was my first one, so I couldn't pass that up. So that was, I knew it was this one when I came up and looked at it, because from 20 yards away, when I seen him, these two tines right here weren't very big on him. So now, I had plenty of shots on deer this year. I lost a few. I know a few of them died, and that I don't really like losing deer too much. I had a doe come in early season. I took a shot on. I was getting close to ending light, so I couldn't record that one either. But I also had a huge buck come in that night too. I shouldn't have even shot at all, but I hit a doe a little bit farther back. Called my buddy. We waited an hour and we bumped her and lost her during the process. Came to a spot where she had bedded down. There was 3 big spots of blood, and then it just, I even heard the noise too of her getting up and moving when we were looking, and we lost her. There was a 5 or 6 point buck that I took a shot on that he took a step when I pulled the trigger, released the arrow, and he didn't bleed very much either, and he was gone. He made it onto other property that we didn't have permission to. We didn't even know who owned it, so we tracked that one for about 1,500 yards. And then the last one, this was purely just for meat in the freezer. There was maybe a 5 point or a 6 point, aiming for the heart, and drilled him right in the leg, right in the leg bone. Instantly there was blood from when we went and looked. He broke, I want to say, at least half of the arrow. I was using aluminum arrows for that one. Half the arrow was in him from what was broke off, and probably about that much is what was left from it. And I waited 4 hours before I went to look for him. We had snow. It was a warmer day. Had blood instantly from when I shot him, and he was limping away pretty good. Started warming up, snow started melting, started raining and sleeting, and I lost him. I just came to a spot where I couldn't even find any more blood. And we went back the next day. I searched for that one probably 6 hours, blind searching, and I have no idea where he had went. But we got 2 of them between me and my wife. Put some meat in the freezer, and then another buddy that's local. He didn't want some of his deers that he had got. He gave me 2 of them. So we had plenty of meat. Made some bratwurst and some breakfast sausage out of them, and our ground meat. So all in all, it was a good season for us. Definitely a learning one, and hopefully next year will be a lot better. I do have a target buck out there. He disappeared the beginning of right as soon as gun season started. He just finally showed back up here within the past couple weeks in February, but I'm looking forward to the next deer season. And I want to thank everybody that watches the videos, that has subscribed. If you guys haven't subscribed already, go ahead and hit that button. I'd like to get 1,000 here eventually. It's going to take some time, but it'll happen eventually. Thanks for watching, guys, and that's going to be it from this one, and we'll catch you on the next one.